So, you've probably heard about this historic new trade deal between the US and India. But what's really going on behind the headlines? Well, it's a complicated story of power, pressure, and some pretty high stakes negotiations. Today, we're going to break down what's actually in this deal and ask a pretty simple question. Who's the real winner here? All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's February 9th, 2026. The White House drops a huge announcement, a breakthrough trade agreement. The idea? To open up India's absolutely massive market. We're talking over 1.4 billion people to American goods. And on the surface, this looks incredible, right? Kind of like the dawn of a whole new era for the world's oldest and largest democracies. And of course, the official language was glowing. The White House put out this fact sheet celebrating the deal for achieving reciprocal trade. They painted it as this perfectly balanced agreement that was going to fix everything and be great for both sides. The words they really wanted you to hear were reciprocal and balanced. But you know how these things go. Once the details started trickling out, a totally different story started to emerge. This wasn't some friendly handshake deal. Nope. This was the end result of a year of some serious, intense pressure. And that, right there, is the big question we're digging into. Who actually came out on top here? So, to get what this deal is really about, we can't just look at the final piece of paper. We have to rewind. We have to look at the whole journey, this year-long story of pressure building and building until something just had to give. And this timeline, wow, it really lays it all out. It kicks off in February 2025, all smiles and handshakes, everyone agreeing to negotiate. But just 2 months later, in April, bam, the US drops a 26% tariff plan. Then comes August, and they double down, adding another 25% penalty. And this one was personal. They tied it directly to India buying Russian oil. So after 6 months of Indian exports just getting hammered, a deal suddenly appears. Let's be really clear about what this means. For half a year, Indian companies were staring down a massive 50% tariff wall, a 50% tax on their goods. This wasn't some abstract threat whispered in a back room. This was real-world economic pain happening every single day. And the impact? It was brutal, and it was fast. Take gems and jewelry, a huge export for India. Their sales to the US just cratered, falling by 44%. And it wasn't just them. Sectors that employed tons of people, like textiles and leather, they got hit hard too. This immense pressure is the context, the backdrop, for the so-called deal that came next. Okay, so now that we know how we got here, let's actually rip open this deal and look at the terms, because this is the fascinating part. Depending on who you ask, the exact same sentence can mean two totally different things. It's all about perspective. First up, the big one, the tariff rate. The White House proudly announces they're lowering the tariff from 25% down to 18%. Sounds good, right? A reduction? But hold on. Critics were quick to jump in and say, wait a minute, before all this drama started, the average tariff was only 2.4%. So what is it, a 7-point cut? Or a nearly 16-point hike from where things used to be? This chart just shows the strategy in plain sight. You see that tiny little bar? That's the old 2.4% tariff. Then, whoosh, this giant 50% penalty tariff gets slapped on, and the deal? That's the new 18% rate. So yeah, 18% is a heck of a lot better than 50%, but it's still over 7 times higher than it was before this all started. India got back into the market, sure, but the cost of admission just went way, way up. All right, next up, who's buying what? The deal says India intends to buy more than $500 billion of American stuff. Energy, tech, you name it. That's a massive win for American companies. But here's the kicker. Critics looked through the fine print and found nothing. There's no matching promise from the US to buy Indian goods. It really looks like a one-way commitment. And this is where things get, well, pretty weird for a trade deal. It's something called conditionality. Basically, getting rid of that extra 25% penalty tariff isn't guaranteed. It depends entirely on India not buying Russian oil. Now, that is just not something you see in trade deals. You're taking a tariff, a tool of trade, and making it conditional on a country's entire energy and foreign policy. It's a whole new level of linking things together. So with all these strange terms, you have to ask, who in India actually wins and who loses? Because this deal was not a one-size-fits-all agreement. It picked and chose, and who it picked tells you a lot about the real priorities here.
And this breakdown makes it pretty clear. Some sectors got a golden ticket, zero tariffs. We're talking cut diamonds, generic pharmaceuticals, aircraft parts. And if you look closely, these are mostly things the US either doesn't make much of or things that feed right into American factories. Think parts for Boeing. But then you look at the other side. India's biggest employers, textiles, apparel, leather, industries with tens of millions of workers. They're still facing that steep 18% tariff.
And for those industries, that 18% tariff is only half the story. The problem is so much bigger. This quote from Zeroda's Daily Brief puts it perfectly. It's not just a tax, they're competing against a deliberately engineered production network. What does that mean? It means Mexico and Canada can sell their textiles in the US with zero tariffs, as long as they use American yarn to make them. It's a closed loop designed to keep business in North America.
All right, let's pull back and look at the big picture. What does a deal like this signal for global trade? Because it feels like we're seeing a playbook for a new, much more aggressive American strategy. From a critical standpoint, the playbook looks something like this. Step 1, hit them with devastating tariffs, like 50%, to create a crisis and get all the leverage. Step 2, offer to help by lowering those tariffs, but only if they give you huge concessions that only benefit you. And step 3, call the new, still really high tariff a deal and declare victory. So what's the bottom line here, according to this analysis? It's a lopsided arrangement. India gets locked in as a huge customer for American industry, but its own key industries, the ones that create the most jobs, are still stuck on the outside looking in, blocked by those high tariffs.
This last quote, I think, really gets to the heart of the concern. You know, normally, countries use tariffs and trade deals to help their own industries grow and get more advanced, to climb up the economic ladder. But what this suggests is that the US might be using tariffs to do the exact opposite, to basically push other countries down the ladder and keep them there.
And that's the big lingering question, isn't it? Is this US-India deal a one-off thing, or is it a blueprint for how things are going to work from now on? Is this the future of global trade, using massive economic force to get a compromise that's anything but? It's definitely something we all need to be watching.